Hi everyone! So today we will be presenting our results of our primate study at the Santa Ana Zoo. Our research question is, how does the behavior of the spider monkeys change in relation to the location of the organism within the enclosure?
Our species of choice were the brown-headed spider monkeys, also known as Atelessus fusarips. Most notably, these monkeys are known for their tails, as they often use it as a fifth limb and are named after it. Their tail is often longer than their body and can be up to 85 centimeters long. Their tail is hairless and rigid on the bottom, and this allows them to have a better grip. They are currently endangered in Ecuador, Colombia, and Panama. Their habitat includes these areas so they can enjoy the environment of rainforests. They are threatened by habitat loss and fragmentation, and heavy hunting for their meat and pellets. Their preferred diet is fruit and leaves, but they also eat insects and seeds. Spider monkeys spend most of their time up in the trees. They have forward-facing eyes, and this allows them to be very good at judging the distances between the branches. They can jump up to 9 meters from branch to branch. They also have a mobile shoulder joints that allow the monkeys a full range of motion. They live in social groups of 20 monkeys. However, they tend to be spread out in smaller subgroups. Physical touch is a very important part of communication within their groups, and they are known to embrace and cuddle frequently with their group mates.
Throughout our time at the Santa Ana Zoo, we were able to collect different behaviors in order to determine if it related with the location of the organism. For example, we tracked different behaviors such as the monkeys grooming themselves, the monkeys sleeping on a branch or swinging on a branch, perching, interacting with one another, and many more. We chose these behaviors because it's what monkeys commonly do, so we were able to get a better understanding of our organism and the different locations that we observed in correlation to the behavior would be the top or bottom half of the enclosure, the middle of the enclosure, or not being visible, or them not being visible at all, because there was an area inside the enclosure that was not visible. So using these different locations helped us answer a research question because we were able to see what behaviors the spider monkeys would have at each location. And after taking the data, we were able to conclude some facts about the behaviors and locations of the spider monkeys. For instance, the spider monkeys would usually eat at the back of the enclosure and hang out near the front of the enclosure. And this answers our research question because by showing us the behaviors of the monkeys, so like them eating or hanging, would change depending on the location that they were at in the enclosure. So like being in the back or being at the top.
In order to collect our data, we went to the Santa Ana Zoo. We identified 3 different monkeys within the enclosure and we labeled them as A, B, and C. Then we looked at the enclosure and changed some of our landmarks and locations to better fit the enclosure that we saw. Afterwards, we decided to assign roles. We assigned one person for each monkey, A, B, and C, and then another person to collect data, to be the timekeeper, and to make sure that everything runs smoothly. We took the data at designated time points, recording at the various time points in 5-minute increments. So every 5 minutes, we would collect data on the various primates, their behavior, and where they were located in the enclosure. We collected data from 11 to 12 and then at 1 p.m. Then, by the end of our entire data collection, we took the information and we used it to make conclusions.
So in this experiment, we established that the primate behaviors are dependent on the location. So referring back to the data we collected, we were able to notice that the spider monkeys were typically more active in the top half of the enclosure. Here they would often interact with each other while they would be subject to stationary sitting or perching off to the corner of the enclosure. So these behaviors were most likely exhibited due to the structure of the enclosure, as there was a ledge along the sides of the enclosure that the monkeys evidently preferred perching on. So the most common behavior exhibited towards the start of the observation period was stationary sitting, and this was frequently in the corners of the enclosure, where they had access to just sitting. And typically when they were subject to stationary sitting, it would usually be alone, and when they would sit together, it would typically be towards the top half of the enclosure, where they had a wide open space, and they had access to a ledge where they can interact with each other. And so towards the end, the monkeys frequently interact with each other towards the top half. And although with the other behaviors and locations, no patterns were recognized, we came to the conclusion that there was no specific correlation for the behaviors exhibited in the locations not previously mentioned. Therefore, they were at random.
However, like every science experiment, we wanted to address potential variables that may have impacted our data. If we were able to do this experiment again, we would want to be mindful of these potential variables in case it did impact our final results. One variable that may have impacted our results was the 1 p.m. data collection, as it was the time that the zookeeper came to clean the cage, and as a result, the monkeys were hidden from view and we couldn't always see the behaviors that they were exhibiting. They were also pushed to one area of the enclosure for the zookeeper's safety. So at that same time point, would the monkeys still choose to go in that area? Yes, or maybe not. We don't know. Similarly, another potential variable that may have impacted our results was the weather, which was extremely cold at the time of the data collection. And the enclosure itself was covered by a lot of foliage, and not a lot of sunlight could actually hit inside the enclosure. So the areas that there was sunlight, many of the monkeys felt more inclined to go there for warmth. So in a warmer climate and in a warmer temperature, we would want to see if the behaviors that we collected in correlation to the location would actually remain the same, or if certain behaviors only occurred because it was a cold temperature.
Bye, and thank you so much for listening.